So it's my pleasure, without wasting any more of your time, to turn over to C.Simsek and A.Andic from UT Dallas. Apologies for, I'm sure, butchering your names. They will talk about their lab series Rethinking Heritage, which critically explores and questions the technical-cultural politics behind what heritage is. I'm fascinated in critical making as a topic, so I'm very much looking forward to their presentation. Over to you.
Thank you so much. So I will share my screen, and I hope it works. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Today we will be presenting our paper, Heritage as a Form of Digital Assemblage. For historians and archaeologists, heritage artifacts are known by their potential of presenting historical evidence. These artifacts are essentials as the part of a wider cultural value in the practices of documentation and archive under institutional or governmental support. However, with the increasing usage of digital fabrication technologies and digital repositories, public perception of these heritage artifacts become conceptually problematized in their shifting qualifications for determining cultural value. So at this point, how to approach the concept of cultural heritage as an experience, and especially as a dynamic process that is not frozen in time and or museum space. In other words, what is heritage in the age of digital virtual technologies? Or how to challenge its existing definitions and how to reflect on dichotomy between cultural and personal valued objects. By having these questions on mind, we, as the co-founders of Fold Space, that stands for Form Alterations, invite you to rethink on the concept of cultural heritage by exploring its creative, experimental, and critical uses on a sharing platform called Sketchweb through a series of workshops. With our workshops and exhibitions, we produce artworks through collaborative projects remediating production methods that raise sociocultural issues in critical thinking. Mainly, our concept explores and questions the techno-cultural politics behind what heritage is. Also, these workshops have undertaken the role of searching and questioning the cultural and personal implications of the digital heritage objects in an era of convergence and participatory culture. The notion of digital heritage today speaks to not only collective, but also personal memory under cultural valuing of historicity. Hence, our workshops suggest a framework to understand how critical making provides a personalized gaze upon history through digitized heritage objects and the techniques of digital fabrication. For expanding the concept of critical making, Matretto argues that users practice joint conversation. They reflect and transform their activities politically and acknowledge the importance of process. Now, let's explore what is Rethinking Heritage. In 2017, we held the first workshop series in collaboration with Bilgi University Communication Faculty, which began a 3D printing studio and block art space, Büyükvaldehan project space. We first asked our participants to give reference to physical objects with personal values. Second, using a 3D modeling software, Autodesk Mesh Mixer, they abstracted their personal objects while using an experimental and expressionist approach of 3D collage. For creating 3D collages, we gathered and presented a dataset from Sketchweb under the category of cultural heritage and history. The participants experiment with the methods of critical making by adjusting cultural heritage objects to their personally valued objects. Here, the collaging process proposes an expressive methodology, and the value of an object is critically questioned by the deconstruction of the cultural beliefs with the integrity of heritage artifacts. Accordingly, the participants investigate the digitized forms, shapes, scale, size, and meanings of a randomized selection of 3D models of cultural heritage objects. They engage with heritage as a form of digital assemblage, where they can introduce digital technologies of mixing. In a together mode, by constructing a dialogue with each other, participants explore the connections between cultural heritage objects and their decision of personal evocative objects. Then, with the installation of 3D printed artworks in the Büyük Valdehan project space, one of the heritage sites in Istanbul, participants were invited to see, approach, touch, and do rethink about historical and contemporary significance of what heritage is.
As a case study, this project particularly focuses on a 3D model sharing platform called Sketchfab, which is an online repository platform for users to upload, edit, and share their 3D models. The platform is initially created for digital artists to show their works to the community of artists and their clients. And as of 2020, the platform hosts over 3 million 3D models across 18 categories, with over 2 million users, which makes the world's one of the largest databases for 3D model sharing online. However, the major significance of this platform in our analysis is its capacity of hosting models from various object categories, along with the levels of freedom for users to determine their own definitions to their models. In terms of the domain of 3D models, some of the major contributors to the category of cultural heritage and history are the Smithsonian, the British Museum of Art, and the Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History. And Sketchfab, with its large community sharing or creating objects of cultural heritage, has become a platform that gathers many diverse collected data on what may be termed as cultural heritage. The platform enables any contributor as users to share and showcase their 3D models in the instant that they are uploaded. And what the platform requires from the user is very few indexable definitions that create a certain gap of missing information in understanding by which definitions and qualities does a 3D model categorized as cultural heritage, and for which communities the 3D model carries most value and attention. Because in the multilinear sense of data sharing and uploading, the order of regulating the formal transcription of digital heritage objects cannot be maintained by such nature of the platform, being both a social platform for diverse communities, an online 3D model repository, a search engine, or an archive that collects digital records of cultural heritage objects. The only significant factor for the separation of 3D models in using the interface of the platform are the 12 set categories and the user-based tag system that the on-platform search engine makes use of. And each web page, there's a different digital object that craves for attention, but does not dictate its significance over another. They're all separately placed in the essence of their web design, which simply is more or less random directionless flux in between different cultural objects. And Charles Jenkins defines the cultural productions in the postmodern era as when no orthodoxy can be adopted without the self-consciousness and irony, because all traditions seem to have some validity. And cultural heritage objects, in according to this philosophy, are also displayed in a spatially unifying but socially complex archive platform that anyone with the right tools may play a role in its making. And in a postmodern sense, the Sketchfab is concerned with the context and the continuity and the community, rather than the rupture and discontinuity. And in an advanced semantic sense, the illusory that is being placed on these platforms does not imitate the real as what is meant to be a cultural heritage in the physical sense, but rather it becomes it as a form of information. And having access to all heritage objects, being as realistic as possible, is an ideal situation where it frightens the society by the loss of value given to the materialist hegemony over cultural heritage. And now coming back to our workshop on the Rethinking Heritage, one needs to ask the question of whether if this project is an act of critical making because of its engaging interpretive factors that makes these publics or these participants engaging. And the way participants in our workshop engage in the shared making of 3D models also instantiates a critical making process known as the prototyping. It's where the acts of making 3D models are the circulation of discursive and material knowledge production. For Matrato, the main focus of prototyping is on the act of shared construction as an activity and a site for enhancing and extending conceptual understandings of critical socio-technical issues. In other words, prototyping is about an iterative process of making things rather than things being made. Our project identifies the process of making and sharing 3D models as instances of making prototypes, given their iterative circulation in the construction of publics. These practices include subjectivity, ambiguity, the contingency of meeting, and the observer-dependent variables in the construction of knowledge through the public speculative inventiveness via the 3D models design. According to Ellen Gelly and Stan Ruker, prototyping also allows the design aspect to become a process of critical inquiry itself, not just the embodiment of results. The prototype's design aspect is one that makes its transferability between different publics a challenging decision-making process. As with each new prototype of a 3D model, there's a unique discursive reason attached in its making. Now, we argue that the act of critical making can create spaces for active engagement, which may influence the social construction of what constitutes a collective appreciation of personal objects and objects of cultural heritage. To contextualize heritage as an experience on its own and to approach it with a contemporary frame helps us see the continuity of all epochs of its time in a transformative form, not opposite or one-sided. And the interventions of contemporary artistic gaze provide conceptual new ways of seeing and temporality to immovable, tangible heritage. Reusing or recovering heritage means to reread it in today's context by experiencing it as an external world filled with the accumulation of past vitality and the imagination of future.
So what do projects like Rethinking Heritage mean for heritage today? The process in the making of these objects ensures cultural heritage as a form of experience that reveals a capacity to multiply the conventions of display and understanding of heritage today. The outputs of the lab as remixed digitized heritage objects contrast with the fear of having to contaminate or lose cultural provenance. Rather, digital assemblages of these objects function as a Darwinian conception that aims to reveal how species interact with each other without losing characteristics of their origin. In the scope of heritage studies, this project demonstrates that the act of critical making can build spaces for the active engagement, which may influence the social construction of what constitutes a collective appreciation for personal and historical objects.
Yeah, thank you very much for listening, and we're eager to hear your comments.